First, thank you so much for having me. It was beautiful. It's never about quantity, it's quality. I heard Don Sytek. My name is Matt Major. I'm the vice chair of the New Hampshire Republican Party. I drove over from Dover to be here for Jim. And as I figure out how to turn this off.
Oh, sorry.
What is down?
You must have had a huge drive to get here. Huge. Huge. But what a view, right? It's amazing. People are incredible. It's huge. Practicing for our next president.
So I drove over for Jim, and also served because I saw the great pictures of Kevin and Tracy Abar picking grapes.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to go over and check this out. So I'll make sure to introduce Senator Kevin Abar. Thank you for being here. He's very quick story in small crowds. Donna Sytek tells a story of where she was with Ronald Reagan, and they were driving through somewhere in New Hampshire, and the staff comes out all like, Governor, I'm so sorry. They walk, it's like, let's go. All the cameras are there. There are 5 people in the room. So it's Ronald Reagan, Donna Sytek, and 5 people. The cameras outnumbered them. And President Reagan, being Reagan, said, this is great, because it's about quality, not quantity. Because each of you are going to go tell your friends about Jim Lawrence. You're going to take a couple people to the polls to help our entire ticket. You're also going to put some signs for a bumper sticker on your car. The best donation is actually a bumper sticker. It's a $250 donation on your car. Put it on there. That's how much advertising you do for Jim. If you can't write a check, you probably didn't walk here. Just put a bumper sticker on your car. Makes a lot of difference. I worked for Governor Lamar Alexander when he was running for president. Good guy, Secretary of Education, Governor of Tennessee. We went up to Tamworth, New Hampshire. Staff comes out, and I've seen that job before. Man, I'm so sorry. Why? And I'm gritting my teeth. Why? There's one person in there. So Lamar Alexander, CNN, bring the cameras, everyone's with us. And he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to go in that room, and I'm going to get that vote, and we are not going to leave until I get that vote. So never ever worry about small crowds. Presidential candidates do 1 to 5. The vote is the amplification, and no one can amplify his message any better than our candidate. I'm thrilled to introduce him. Jim Lawrence.
Before I get started, I just have to say something about Matt Mayberry. New Hampshire, everybody thinks of it as a small state, but I can tell you, traveling almost across this entire state, when you're driving day in and day out on these small roads, it seems like a big state. And nobody has covered more meetings in this state than this gentleman right here. So I want to thank Matt Mayberry for the Republicans in the state. And thank you for coming. Senator Abar, thank you. I see our county attorney, Dennis Hogan.
Hi, Dennis.
I see our friends at Granite Rock here are busy chronicling what's going on here. And I see many friends that I've met before and some that I haven't met before. And I would be remiss without thanking the Fulchinos for opening up their beautiful building. So this isn't, the last group that I spoke to wasn't a small crowd. Yesterday I actually had the honor of speaking before Donald Trump at his event in Bedford. And I can tell you this, it's very interesting when you're speaking to a large crowd, but it's always more personal when you speak to a group of your friends. So, this is actually one of my more favorite venues here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jim Lawrence. I'm running for Congress because Washington is broken. The people of the 2nd Congressional District in New Hampshire sent Ann Custer down to Washington to do one thing, provide solutions, and support the voters of this great city. And instead, she went down to Washington and did something completely different. She didn't vote for the and she started supporting the party bosses in Washington. And it's time for us to have new leadership in Washington. I served 3 terms in the New Hampshire State House. I'm also an Air Force veteran, proud graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, small businessman, but more importantly, proud family man, and parent of 8 wonderful children. And I couldn't look my children in the eye, knowing that I stood by and did nothing, while Washington, D.C. spent their future prosperity away. Does anyone here know what the national debt now sits at?
Close to 20 trillion, right?
That's correct. Almost $20 trillion account. That's $60,000 for each and every American. Even our children. That's not a burden that we should leave to future generations. And unfortunately, our federal government doesn't just stop there. They're continuing to overregulate and overtax our small businesses, which we know are the economic engine of this great nation. We're standing here in one of the front lines of growing our economy. A small business that struggles with taking care of their day-to-day tasks. A small business that struggles with making payroll, with paying bills, keeping up with regulations, both at the federal and state level. And it grows and grows every day. I know, I'm a small business owner myself. I've seen personally, firsthand, how the federal government not only drives up the cost of doing business by increasing taxes, but drives up the cost of small business particularly in trying to comply with all of the rules, regulations, and laws that they pass year in and year out. Our economy is not suffering because of competition or because of a lack of a labor pool or because of price competition. It's suffering because our government is damaging the very businesses that we're expecting to help grow the economy. Where's our Representative Ann Custer while all this is going on? She's not voting for us. She's supporting the current administration's failed policies that continue to lead America down the wrong path. She votes with the current administration over 95% of the time. It's got to stop. Does anyone here feel safer than they did 8 years ago? I know. How about 4 years ago? We have the worst foreign policy in decades. Our allies don't feel like they can depend on us, and our enemies certainly do not fear us. We see evidence of this all over the world, with ISIS-sponsored terrorist attacks abroad against our allies, and even right here in our home. Our enemies are emboldened. We just offered Iran the sweetheart deal of the century. We've traded them cash for hostages. We've returned money to help the #1 state sponsor of terrorism around the world on the current administration's watch. I might add that our Representative Custer has wholeheartedly supported the Iran deal. It's time for a change. It's time for us to have leadership in Washington that's going to support us, not our enemies. Representative Ann Custer has an opportunity to support our veterans. Has anyone seen her latest ad where she's got the veterans praising her about how much she's supporting them? I want to know where Ann Custer was when our veterans were waiting for the health care we promised them at the VA. While she was down in D.C., sitting on her committee, voting against the Veterans Accountability Act. The very piece of legislation that was supposed to bring accountability into the VA and prevent these types of atrocities from happening. She wasn't there. And I don't need to ask a veteran. I am a veteran. And I want a representative in Washington that is going to give more than lip service to solving the problems that our veterans face day in and day out. Has anyone traveled recently? How was your flight? I mean, did you go through security screening? Was that a smooth process for you, Matt? No. It never is it? We already talked about whether we're safer or not now. But the unfortunate thing is our federal government seems to have lost its way. We have organizations like the TSA that are so overgrown and bloated with the big bureaucracy of the federal government, but they can't seem to figure out how to do anything efficiently or effectively. It's time for new leadership in Washington. You know, it's interesting. There is one thing that I can honestly say that I did enjoy that our Representative Ann Custer did. Did anyone see what her response was to try and fight ISIS-sponsored terrorism after the Orlando shooting? Anyone notice what she did?
She sit down.
Yeah, she participated in a sit-in in the Capitol. So our Representative Ann Custer believes that the way to target and fight ISIS-sponsored terrorism around the world is to take our Second Amendment rights away. And she thought it would be a dignified position to take to sit down on the Capitol floor in protest. Now, that happens to be my favorite picture of our Representative Ann Custer. Because to me, that picture represents exactly what she's been doing for 2 terms.
Sitting down on the job.
She's been sitting down on the job. How'd you know? Isn't it time that we had a representative that would stand up for us? I can go on and on and on about why we need new leadership in Washington right now. But you know what? I don't think I need to. Because I think it's very clear to the voters of New Hampshire. It's clear to them that our representative hasn't been doing the job that we sent her down there to do. And it's clear that we have a choice. We have an alternative that is willing to lead on day one. So tonight, I ask for your support. Tonight I ask for your vote. I ask for you to stand with me so that I can go to Washington and stand up for you, the voters of the great state of New Hampshire. Thank you.
Maybe you can help Jim. We just handed Andy flyer. Twitter. Because I have 3,100 Twitter followers. So I take a picture of Jim, and you folks send out 3,100 people in New Hampshire know what happens. Kevin Abar is a prodigious person on Facebook and Twitter. So you want to help amplify the message? Follow him on Twitter, friend him on Facebook, and amplify his message.
He also has one of the best Twitter handles I've seen, right?
Really?
What's your Twitter handle?
Zach Singer, 63.
That's right. There you go.
So that's how you can help.
All right.
Matt, may I tie into something you said earlier about the 250, the estimated value of one bumper sticker, $250. Back in 2010, when I first learned that, they were also talking about the value of a bumper sticker on the front of the car. And they were estimating that's between $400 and $500. The reason being is that when you're driving down the road, more cars are passing you. car behind you for a period of time, and a lot of people don't see it. So the value of putting it up front is greater. Just pass that on.
I'll do something new.
Hey, John, may I have some real estate in front of your car?
Have some more.
Some real estate in front of your car?
Done. That's a sales right there.
Windshield, Jim.
Absolutely.
Nice little windshield.
Excellent. So does anybody have any questions for me at this time, or?
When are you having your debates with Ann Custer, and what's going to be your approach?
You know what, that's an excellent question. I'm very much looking forward to my debates with Ann Custer. The first televised debate is actually scheduled for NH1. I don't think my opponent has confirmed that she's actually coming, but I bet you she will. And I believe
Because we'll
that,
put an empty podium up.
I'm sorry, was
We'll
that?
put an empty podium up, so.
I don't want an empty podium. I want to debate Representative Custer. But I believe that's on the 28th of October. So that'll be the first televised debate, and then the WMUR debate will be the first week in November, if I'm not.
So the
4th
28th
of
of October
November.
is on a Friday, right?
You're gonna test my memory of what the calendar looks like?
No, I think the 21st is a Friday. So the point here is, did she have any influence in selecting the date?
That I do not know.
Because obviously if it is on a Friday, you have less, people are not paying much attention to it.
No, it's based on general availability, viewership, and it just, no, they have pretty arbitrary dates.
Okay.
It's when we have staffing, whether we can do stuff, it's pretty arbitrary.
And to answer your second question, what's my strategy gonna be? My strategy is going to be able to communicate the clear distinctions to the voters between what Ann Custer has done and what her record is versus what my record is and what I intend to do. She's gonna try and blur those lines and try and pretend like it doesn't exist, but I'm gonna make sure that the voters see that.
Mm.
Any other questions?
I have a tough one for you.
All right, I'm ready for
Maybe
it.
a couple tough ones. So something has changed in police departments across America, and even in Manchester. And I know the Free State Project's got involved in driving our cops crazy to get them to treat citizens with more dignity and respect. So they've actually made police afraid to get out of their vehicles in some spots in Manchester because they know they're being filmed, and it's a little bit crazy. But anyway, my question is, when we look across America, we're seeing some kind of epidemic. I've never seen in my childhood police killing dogs. And by the way, I believe that we need community policing, and I know it worked at Lowell. Lowell was a mess. They had gang wars, and then by creating local police little spots for the cops to get to know the neighborhood and to walk the beat and to ride the bikes, it became a better environment, and the crime rate in Lowell dropped dramatically. And here we are with heroin epidemics, and the crime rate in Manchester is going up. And I mean, New Hampshire is the live free or die state, and I would never thought it would start to hit our state. What are your thoughts about kind of making sure that our police don't end up doing some things we're seeing in other parts of the country, and that we can have a better relationship between the police and the communities?
Okay, very good question. One thing that many of you may not realize is that I'm actually the son of a 35-year law enforcement veteran. And what's also interesting about that is this question talks about community policing. My father was actually a pioneer in implementing community policing in one of the first major cities in New York City. So I'm going to answer that piece of it first. I am definitely a big fan of community policing. I think it's a vital tool in our arsenal to get communities and police to cooperate in order to fight crime. We have found that it does, in fact, help deter and fight crime. So I think that's a very important thing to reinforce. You asked a question about the heroin epidemic. This is a very unfortunate tragedy that we're facing with this drug crisis currently. My plan to be able to address this properly, it requires, in my estimation, a three-pronged approach. We need to make sure that we have not only the law enforcement component to this, because we do need to stop these illegal narcotics from coming into our state, but we also need to make sure we have adequate treatment facilities to be able to deal with those who are struggling with the drug crisis. And there is an educational component. It does take a concerted effort on all three of those levels to be able to fight this drug crisis. And I can tell you, as your congressman, I would do everything in my power to make sure that all three of those areas would have the resources that are needed in order to get the job done. And in terms of civil liberties, my philosophy is very simple. The number one law in the land in the United States is the Constitution. And we should not be doing anything that strays away from the Constitution. I mean, I can go on and on about Representative Ann Custer and Hillary Clinton and all the things that they want to propose that would be a violation of the United States Constitution. So, police violating our civil liberties or our rights based on the Constitution will never be tolerated. I don't think that we should tolerate that. But we're very fortunate because we happen to live in a state where the overwhelming majority of police officers do their job very well every day to keep us safe. So we'll take notice of that, and we'll fight hard to make sure that we maintain that. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Like I said, I need volunteers. I need people to take signs. I need people to help work in a whole host of capacity. We need door knockers. We need people to make phone calls. We need people to stand out in polling locations. And of course, we definitely appreciate donations because I can tell you right now, my staff and everything else is paid for. The only thing I'm going to be spending money from this point forward is to get our message out to the voters. So this is a critical time. And I'll also add that your donations to my campaign are actually more effective than anything else. Because I can tell you, when I put an ad up on TV or I purchase ad space, my rate is actually cheaper than any political action committee or any outside organization. So you're getting more bang for your buck by donating to Jim Lawrence for Congress. So thank you again.
Can I ask you a question? Do you see a lot of DNC money coming in? No, seriously, I mean, it sounds like a stupid question, but
No, it's not a
are they
stupid
really
question.
coming after you to keep Custer there?
Flows with the heroin.
To answer your question, yes. She's got DC support. She's got her own donors that have been supporting her from California and elsewhere across the country. It's not New Hampshire supporting her. It's the rest of the country, and the Democrats from a lot of Californians are donating to her campaign, a lot of money coming from DC. So I do see a lot of support coming from DC. Hey Matt, can you send a message to DC for me and tell them I'd like some too?